Hello, everybody. Hi, it's me, Joanna Intara Zim. I'm the founder of Make the Sacred Shift, and just going to give people a little bit of time to get on here on our broadcast today. It is Tuesday, and I don't even know what date it is today. In the middle of November, sometime. I think we're close to like the 12th or the 13th. And today's topic is called The Biggest Love Loss and the Redemption that can birth through us because of it. And so I was inspired to get on here today because the middle of November in 2011, I think it was, or maybe it was actually 2010, I was pregnant with my second child. I have a 9-year-old son who will be 10 next May. And I also have a 6-year-old daughter who will be 7 the end of next April. And so in 2010, when my son was maybe 2 years old, or maybe a year old, maybe 2 years old, I was pregnant with a second child. And, it was during the fall that we got pregnant. And the fall is a time in the Taoist system of psychic release and letting go, and it's a death time. The summer is the time of psychic strengthening, and the fall is the time of psychic release. So we're kind of like harvesting the accumulation of everything from the year. And in the fall, we kind of get a chance to see, what's happened throughout the year. And so we're in that stage now where it's fall, there's psychic release, there's kind of like a death energy. We're transitioning from the fall weather into the deep cold and intensity that is not only autumn, but moving into winter. So it got me thinking of this second pregnancy that I experienced, and I thought it would be fun to just have a little light on my face today because with this filter, because I feel like I need it, and that we all do, to help us shine our way in the darkness when there is a lot of intense stuff. So I'll share this story, and hopefully you can bear with me for just a moment because it's a pretty deep story, one that I haven't actually shared publicly before, but I wanted to give everyone an opportunity to see what a really big love loss can be experienced like and what it can feel like. And then also the deepest redemption that's also possible on the other side, which is something I also got to experience. So the person that I was in 2010, I think it was. No, it was 2009, sorry. The person that I was in 2010 is definitely not the person that I am now. I was tighter, inside. I was more, I think I was definitely more insecure. I was definitely more fear-based. And I got pregnant with our second child. And unlike the pregnancy that I had with my first child, my second child, it felt completely different. And they say that all children, the pregnancies are really different. But this pregnancy it felt different. Like it felt like a very different energy in my body. I suddenly, after having had a first pregnancy where I had eaten tons of meat and felt really strong and robust, I did not feel that way during this pregnancy. In fact, the thought of eating any animal products made me feel really barfy, and I didn't really understand what was happening. And there was also a great amount of turmoil in my partnership that was working out really deep, difficult, intergenerational trauma. And it was incredibly painful, and I didn't have all the tools that I have now. I didn't have all the resources. I felt lost a lot. I was hurt. I was angry. I was deep in all of my betrayal wounds like I never had been. And so, anyway, I felt like there was something off with this pregnancy. Hi, Meg. Yeah, is it a strange light? It's like a weird, strange light. Yeah, it's actually a filter that I put on today just to have a little fun, but maybe I can remove it if that's possible. Thanks for letting me know that. Okay, I'll get rid of the strange light. I thought it'd be kind of fun to add some light today. Okay, so here we are with the light on. Hopefully it's a little better. Thanks for letting me know that, Meg. Good to see you. Anyways, the first set of medical tests for this baby were totally fine. We were healthy, we were happy, so we thought. But towards the second test that we had, I just felt like there was something really off, really off. Really off. Really hard to share this because I feel vulnerable and definitely nervous and a little bit unsure of who's watching and all of that. It's a big public thing to share for somebody who's usually a very private person. So the night before we got the results for the second test, there was a dream that I had that just felt like something was really off. And the next day, my husband was driving me home from something, I think it was a medical appointment, and the doctor called to say that the test results came back positive for Down syndrome. We didn't know what accuracy that was, but what we did find out was that a lot of times the Down syndrome tests are actually off and not correct, and so the only way to get a more complete test was to go where they take some cells out of the umbilical cord, I forget what it's called, and examine it that way to really be sure what exactly would be going on. So I put my faith in the test coming out positive and continued to go along with my journey. If you're just joining, let me know who you are and say hello. I'm telling the story of big loss experience that I had during my second pregnancy. So I was actually close to, I think it was 20 weeks or 19 weeks when we started these tests, and then the second test happened at the 23-week mark or 22-week mark. I was pretty showing and I have a public job where I would give trainings and see clients. So all of my clients were seeing me quite pregnant and also quite full in my pregnancy. And so the results came back of the second test. And we hadn't got them yet, but the night before I felt like there was something really wrong with the baby, like not just like my imagination or a feeling in my body, but a really deep feeling like there was something wrong. And I had this dream where I heard literally like this snapping sound in my belly, and I don't know if that was inside me or it was my pregnancy belly, but in either case, I woke up and I just felt the biggest sense of doom and gloom that I could probably remember feeling. And I said to my husband, I woke him up, it was like 3 in the morning, and I said, you know, we haven't gotten the results back from the second test to see what's really true, but I feel like there's something really wrong. And I started just grieving sobs like I'd never had. Still, this is evocative for me. Still, it's really deep. So we called the genetic testing person at 5 in the morning, and she actually called us back. Bless her. Beautiful soul who was really attuned to us and knew what we were dealing with because she already had the test, which resulted in saying that the baby had an anomaly on chromosome 15, which lent itself to a host of couple deep syndromes that basically they said would not have the baby live beyond the first year of life. It was like a Frankensteinian list of like 15 syndromes, from organs being born in wrong places in bodies to congenital heart defects to lung problems to it was so intense. And we were devastated. We were devastated on so many levels, so much shock and terror and fear and overwhelm because we just were not expecting it. I had this identity, right? Like, be really careful to not have an identity about anything. But I had this identity of myself as a really healthy person who was healthy, and I am a really healthy person. I've always been physically strong and robust and good endurance and good patience and all that kind of thing. And it didn't fit with my self-concept that this was happening, but I felt like energetically something was right on, although I couldn't quite make sense out of it. This is really hard to share. Really, really hard to share. If you're here, let me know who you are. Send me some hearts. I could sure use them, as I think we all can during such intense resharing of our vulnerable losses and stories. So we talked, and we did get the confirmation that there was these incredible genetic anomalies, that the stats for couples staying together with these were already so poor and not viable for the long term, because there are no supports, because these are such orphan, mysterious diseases and things like that. No support, no community support. We already had a child at home. The cost to that child, all of us, it really knocked on our psychic door so much. And so we arrived at the really difficult decision that we would end the pregnancy. And it was a very dangerous thing to do. One, because very often pregnancies are not ended at that time. I'm just going to take a sip of water here. I think that will help clear my throat here. And also finding a doctor who would be willing to perform that at that stage was not easy either. I actually remember her telling us that the equipment had to be locked up at the hospital with a padlock and cables, because she was concerned about people stealing her unreplaceable equipment. And not to mention the fact that I also had a really public job, and to share this would require some explaining to all my clients, which felt also really, really hard as well. So we did make the decision to go through that, and I was supported by a dear number of friends. And the process where they do that, where they actually end the pregnancy, is actually so gruesome. I'm sure some of you have been through that. But there's a way that they actually stop the heart while it's inside the mother's body with an injection. And I can't tell you what I went through in that time, with incredible prayers as it was happening, and the loss of such a life, you know. We'd also gotten confirmation from a dear seer friend of ours that this being felt like a Gandhi kind of like presence. Not that he was Gandhi, but just like a presence, completely not attached to being in the body. And he was cruising around as a spirit, looking to see where he could land and who he could teach some lessons to. And maybe if I didn't have a purpose in my life, or there wasn't anywhere I was going, or we didn't have a plan or a structure, that maybe it would have given us some purpose. But we did not feel like that was our path, and I hope that whoever's watching will not judge me for that. And so at the greatest time of right when he was about to pass, I could feel it. I was so crying, but I was also reciting a mantra. I was reciting a mantra, and I was crying, and I was praying, and there was a circle of people around me. And when he passed, literally, there was like, I cried out for help. I just said, please show me a way, show me what this is supposed to mean. I wasn't even saying it to who, it was just this general sense of the divine, like all around me. And suddenly, out of nowhere, literally, I was shown this vision of infinite amounts, like a Colosseum full, like one of those circular Colosseum fulls of angels, literally Colosseum full of 1,000,000 infinite angels were there, like supporting me and supporting him and our family in this passageway through. And accompanied with those angels were numerous amounts of white feathers and rose quartz. Rose quartz was with me. I'm just going to take a pause to feel that again, because it was so deep. And like I said, I've never shared this before. So what was that? I mean, we were deeply supported by an entire Facebook community who had been sharing their prayers and messages and phone calls, and just so much deep love coming from such a deep, open, wide place. And it reminded me, all of us have deep losses. We all have deep hurts. We all have deep heartaches. We all have deep betrayals. And they go deep. They cut deep into our heart and our soul. And they're not shallow. We I just went to an amazing transformative workshop last week. There's not a single person on this planet that has not been through deep shit of some kind or another. And I really sincerely feel like I can say I know. There's very few people I meet that have had maybe what some people call a rest lifetime. So what it showed me is that, someone for me who can perceive herself as being self-sufficient and self-reliant and self-generating and all those wonderful self-esteeming and worthing words, I really had to open up to a vulnerability that I'd never opened up before. And when I was crying during this period of time where his soul passed on, I called out for help. I called out in the deepest part of my loss and my crying and my hurt and all the woundedness I felt at that time. It just all coalesced in this giant loss of this spirit who was leaving his body through my body at the same time. And there's something of a quality, what I've realized is that when we are in the deepest amount of pain, when we are feeling the deepest part of our heartache, our deepest losses, when we are experiencing our deepest let-goes, and this is the time and the season of the year for let-goes, when we call out for help during those times, and I have a few other stories like this too that I would like to share in the future, there's something about that that is so open and pure-hearted and sincere. There's not a lot of thought manipulating anything. We're not trying to make a story out of it. Our bodies are open. Our hearts are open. Our wound is almost like, it's funny because I think of the word wound and wound similarly. Our wounds are literally getting unwound when we call out for help. And that's what happened to me during this experience. I called out for help, and the help arrived in the form of not only the human world of friends and family and my dear father-in-law who flew up with his girlfriend and friends who supported us. It was just like, that was part of it. And in addition, it was the spirit world. I feel like there are all these beings without bodies that are not encumbered by our human stuff that we have. It's like we can be encumbered by our humanity. And so they're just waiting to help. Thank you for those hearts. I really appreciate that. This is a deep thing to share. And I've actually taken 2 years to share this because, actually more than 2 years. I think, God, 7 years. It's taken me 7 years to share this, everybody. So as a woman who holds herself as a successful woman, I, have felt like I should be able to handle all this on my own. And I've noticed that the women I work with they're successful, they're spirit oriented, they're soul driven, and they still feel like they have to do it alone, still feel like alone is self-sufficient, better, more accomplished, more points, more being seen, more being valued by other people if you're the tough, strong one. And in this patriarchal world, I really feel like that needs to shift, especially if we are to deliver the fullness of our soul gifts out into this planet to those that we are meant to serve. So it's possible, and in reaching out during your greatest moments of loss and hurt and betrayal and fear and everything that goes along with all of that, there's a divine guidance that shows up. It wants to show up. It's literally waiting as spirit for us to call it into creation with our hearts, our words, our voice, our mind, our bodies, and we get to actually shape that, which is a beautiful freedom to not take for granted. And it's also possible that there's a huge shift because of the mandala of support and healing that shows up when there is soul loss and soul pain and soul fracture, which this definitely was for me. Whew, a lot to share all that. Hope that's okay with you all. A little fear about being judged for my decision, but trust that those who are watching this are the ones who will resonate with it. Really curious to hear about your experiences of deep soul loss and fracture, if you've gone through something like this. And most of my clients are amazing, brilliant, genius women who are bringing forward a lot in this world as entrepreneurs, visionaries, and luminaries. and they are really wanting to soar to the heights of what they're here to do without sacrificing their sanity or their soul. And so if you are one of those women and you are looking for greater clarity and smoother sailing as you ascend through your work and in relationship and love and home and family, and you're wanting to bring your brilliance and gifts into the next level of becoming, I would love to invite you in for a chat with me, see how we can explore that and take that farther. My experience is that those of us who have been through the biggest amounts of loss, the biggest hurt, the biggest betrayals, the biggest wounds, are the ones who are actually able to embody the biggest jewels and gifts that the experiences actually have tucked away inside of them. And those gifts are the ones that are essential to really going to the next level of embodiment and expression in your work life, in your love life, and everything that goes along with that. So if that is you, I would love to hear from you. I'd love to chat with you and find out more about what you're experiencing. And my sense is that you already know what some of those really big losses, hurts, and betrayals are, and that there's some part of you, if you're watching this, that's intuiting and already knows that there's a big piece in there, but you just don't know how to, move it along the becoming process. And our society doesn't teach us that either. It didn't teach me that either. But I can say now for sure that I call out when I feel weak, and I'm putting little quotes mark around that because it's the little me that might say I feel weak at times, and sometimes I feel physically not super strong, but I no longer judge myself for being weak if I need help and or want to be deeply supported into the level of what's next for me. And so I get a lot more information now. I have a direct communion with my guides that I shared about recently, the trio of the 3 male presences that are here to protect the feminine and restore harmony and peace between the masculine and feminine. I don't think would have come through me more vividly if I hadn't gone through this experience. Like, I have a direct relationship with the divine now, and sometimes the people that I work with are also learning to go through the most traumatic, difficult betrayals and learn how to utilize them for greatest benefit in terms of bringing them forward and being able to utilize that jewel. Because once you go through that, it's like nobody can take that away from me, and nobody can take away the hard work that you do, the deep inner work that you do to harvest that. And here we are. It's fall. It's harvest time. And so I hope this has been helpful for you. If you've got a question, let me know in the comments, and I will also place the chat with me link there. I'd love to see who you are and to know more about you. And I really thank you for watching. I know your time is valuable, so I will hop off now and wish you a really good day. And thank you so much for listening to my story. Lots of love to you. And if you're going through something really challenging and big and overwhelming right now, just deeply know how much I support you and how much I am, from the very inside of my heart and the depth of my soul, with you, and want to support you and be with you as you walk forward with this. I just want to communicate that to you.